Hello and welcome to The Grid, the show that eats gravel and tarmac for breakfast and washes it down with a chaser of high-octane fuel. It's about motorsport, and this is Wednesday the 21st of March 2012, the day on which Ayrton Senna would have been 52, and on the day we find out that Formula Renault UK 2012 season has been cancelled as one of the key feeder series to Formula One that has introduced Kimi Raikkonen and Lewis Hamilton to the sport. So a bit of a disaster, but the big news, of course, is that the Formula One season has begun. Joining me, as ever, in the studio is Kevin Shepherd. How are you?
Hello, mate. I'm all right. How are you?
Good. I'm very good, thanks. A little bit, much like Heikki Kovalainen keeps tweeting, I've got a bit of a head cold as well, but I'm less vocal about it.
Why have you got a head cold? Where have you been, Neil?
Well, I was in Monza, and then I was in the IRC for the Gran Canaria.
Wah, wah, wah.
So we've got plenty to discuss here on The Grid. Of course, the key thing about The Grid is we want you to get involved. We now have a Facebook page.
We are so hip.
So you can like that if you like. And also we want you to be getting up on our Skype wall. What seems to happen is we involve a lot of journalists and professionals, but we're still keen on fans. So if you want to get involved and talk to us via Skype about all the motorsport happening in your world, then please do that. Also, you can tweet us at STL_TheGrid. That's our Twitter handle. Yeah, find us on Facebook. But most importantly, get involved. And by the way, this week's show is an hour. Ooh.
Wow, an hour.
An hour.
It's because we've got Tancredi on.
Yeah. So, the Formula One, the race. Did you watch it live?
I watched it live. Illegally, I watched it live. Yeah, I did watch a download of the race. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was really exciting. It's always exciting in Melbourne. As Alonso said, it's a crazy race, and it proved to be exactly that.
For you, I mean, I was in Spain, well, in Gran Canaria, watching it on German RTL in my hotel room, and they kept going to an ad break when anything good happened. And in the whole lead up to the race, which was from about 5 in the morning, it's funny because it's German television. It's so alien because everything they focused on was the German drivers. We're used to it always being about Button and Hamilton and De Resta, but it was all about Schumacher, Vettel, etc. So from your perspective, what were the funny points, the high points?
The funniest point, without doubt, was obviously Kimi and his blue flag. Why am I getting all of these blue flags? Why am I getting? Because you're in a Grand Prix car, idiot.
It's for the cars behind you. Don't worry about it. He forgot. Bless him. Rookie errors from Kimi Raikkonen.
He not only did that, but he failed to qualify because he was in the garage changing his helmet. He obviously brought the wrong one in. He's like, how do I get round the corners? There's no one telling me what to do.
No pace notes from last year.
I'm really hoping. I'm surprised he didn't wait and queue up at the start for somebody to go. But yeah, it was.
But a promising race from him. I mean, he was quick, he did some overtaking.
Yeah, him and Kobayashi. I was hoping it would be Kobayashi and Alonso, but it looks like it's... Oh, sorry, Raikkonen and Alonso, but it looks like it's going to be Kobayashi and Raikkonen. And they've both got a very similar driving style in that they like to nudge people out of the way. So it's either going to be very exciting or the source of a lot of crashes.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll get on and they'll race fairly. But.
And someone else who impressed me was Maldonado.
Oh, mashed potato. He did very well. The man is so ugly. I mean, he's the ugliest man in Formula One.
From Voldemort.
I know, pot kettle black, but he is, without doubt, the ugliest man in Formula One. And he's got quite an attractive girlfriend. Who knew?
What first attracted you to the multi-millionaire Formula One driver? But he was really good. Like, I was thinking of cooking a new dish, the pasta Maldonado, which is delicious until the last bite, which is sour and
then you're
the meal.
Sick.
So he was impressive. Who was less than impressive? I think Massa.
Massa, fantastic. I think the way it works with Massa is he just gets embarrassed at his poor performance and finds someone to crash into to end the embarrassment. In this case, it was Senna. He thought he's a fellow Brazilian. He'll understand. I'm so rubbish, and he just veered into the side of him. But yeah, I mean, he's going to go, isn't he? Surely his days are numbered.
They have to be. I mean, I happen to know that we're going to be speaking to our Italian friend Tancredi in a moment on Skype about the whole Ferrari situation, but
so
very poor.
Very, very poor. I mean, it's a rubbish car, allegedly, but Alonso still managed to...
He managed to squeeze some great speed out of that.
But then Alonso insists on having a number 2 driver in the fullest sense.
Well, number 2 as in, poo.
Yeah, exactly. He has to insist on that. It's kind of part of the deal. I want to be number 1. I want to be seen as the priority. So, I mean, who are they going to replace Massa with?
I don't know. We'll hopefully find out
Tank will
what the
tell us.
rumours are from the Italian papers over with Tancredi in a moment. What else? What else was particularly exciting about the week?
Button off the start was amazing, and that first corner, I've watched that first corner crash so many times. I mean, what I can't get about that crash is Senna went up on one side. Ricciardo, I think it was Ricciardo's wheel he went over, but both of those cars carried on racing, no smashes, no detrimental effect to the cars. So I don't know how
clearly
solid,
stronger cars. Yeah,
than they used to be,
Yeah.
or maybe it's just that new low nose. Maybe they're ugly but strong.
But and suddenly all the French drivers seem to be doing all right. Jean-Eric Vergne, who I've worked with last year on a Formula Renault 3.5,
You really worked with him?
Well, I've interviewed him a few times.
I thought for a second you'd driven around in a car with him.
No. Him and Ricciardo, very, very impressive.
Yeah, and they were, is it Vernon and Ricciardo? That's the other thing that's confusing. When you get all these new drivers, you see the little strip at the bottom and you're like, Pick? What is he doing?
Yeah.
What is Pick doing? And who is Vern?
Yeah, Pinocchio.
I imagine Vern to be some old guy from Yorkshire, just turns up, drives a car around him.
like a Vern Troyer. Why did I do that? That's offensive. If you're offended by that, then I apologise. Perez. What else? Comment.
Perez with his one stop is classic one stop. Perez did a massive one stop, and everyone at some point got stuck behind Perez. But the best part of that was the last lap shenanigans when he was just slowing massively, and everyone was catching him. He's losing places.
Now the biggest thing that was a shock, was not really a shock, but was annoying, was Hamilton's grumpiness. Now, you've just driven, the first event of the series in a car.
Look at him there. He looks like he's crying.
In a car that was, last year at this stage was way behind, rubbish. You've come third, having qualified on pole. Why was he in such a bad mood on the podium?
Because he was beaten by Jenson. He hates it.
Is that all it is?
He hates it. Well, I mean, he sees it as a bad day. He qualified him first, and he knows the statistics. I think there's some weird statistic that so many people that have won the Australian Grand Prix have then gone on to win a championship. It's kind of like a bit of a benchmark, so maybe he's got that in his head. But he's always a bit like this. He's always, I mean, he has every right to be grumpy. He was on pole. It was all set up. He's got a car that clearly won, but he lost a place to... and to be honest, he only really lost the place to Vettel because of that safety car. It wasn't like he had the chance to race him. It was just an unfortunate set of circumstances that gifted Vettel that second place.
And he of all people will know that's just standard Formula One racing.
Maybe it's just because his mum was there. His mum was at the race. Maybe he just really doesn't like his mum coming to school with him. Stop holding my hand.
It's like his little sulky teenager.
Mum.
But But you can always tell, a classic thing with any motorsport is you can tell if a racer is annoyed at the end of the race when he's on the podium, and instead of the first thing he does when the champagne is open, instead of spraying it, just takes a big old drink of his own. That you can tell that he got no love for anyone else on that podium.
No,
if he doesn't spray it on them, just takes a drink for himself, you're a grumpy, selfish, spoiled thing.
Yeah, he really is.
But I couldn't believe it. It was like, for all the millions of fans around the world watching it for the first time, can I go, just put on a smile? And isn't there a picture of him in the kind of team celebrations where he's got the most forced smile?
Brilliant.
Let's do a version of the forced smile of Hamilton. It's like the worst forced smile I've ever seen.
Yeah, he looks really upset.
We don't have the picture. I'm just hearing in my ear.
That's a shame.
But we're keen to get to the bottom of these rumours about Ferrari. Do we have Tancredi from? Okay, so we should be able to speak in a moment via Skype to the tank.
The tank.
Tancredi Palmeri, Italiano giornalista, all the way from. Are you Skyping in from Italy there, Tank?
Yes, it's in Milano. Buongiorno a tutti.
Buongiorno, come stai?
I feel great, but I must say that not everyone is feeling great here in Italy because of the start, and what a start from Ferrari. I don't know if I already mentioned it, the bomb that today Gazzetta dello Sport dropped on the Ferrari world. Do you know what it's about?
Did you understand anything he said?
No,
I said that I'm feeling great, but not everyone in the Ferrari world today is feeling great because of the bomb that Gazzetta just throw on the Ferrari with the news on the cover page today that the Ferrari board is considering to replace Felipe Massa along the season.
Wow,
Really?
this
And
year.
this is
Yes,
on the front
yes.
page of the Gazzetta.
It's the front page of Gazzetta, and it is, and then there is of course a huge review inside. And the thing is that in Ferrari they are completely unhappy of what was the performance so far of Massa in the test, and of course in the first Grand Prix. Until this moment, the policy has been to support Massa because he's in a quite sensible situation because his contract, his deal has to be renovated, and so there is a huge pressure over him. But until this moment, he's reacting completely in the opposite way. Like he's like mentally shaking in some way. They were expecting something like a kind of attack race, offensive race from him, and instead it was completely disappointing. Instead, Alonso, okay, it's a different kind of quality, but at least Alonso was giving all on the track. And after what they saw and after the test, the real news, and Gazzetta is daring to launch this news in the cover page, is that they are starting to consider the possibility of replacing him, and there is already one name that could be in his place.
Okay, who?
And the guy is Sergio Perez.
Oh,
Wow.
so Perez
Yes.
could easily sort of slip into Massa's Ferrari overalls. How first of all, do you think it's fair, Tancredi, to replace Massa this early in the season? And secondly, do you think Perez is the right person?
Well, first, you use the word easily. I wouldn't say the word easily because, of course, it's not an easy change that this would happen. I don't think, of course, that it's fair. But I have to say also that in all if you think about this, it's an amazing stat. In all the history of Formula One, Ferrari just replaced once one driver along the season because of technical decision, not because of some injury or some car crash has happened with Massa before or Schumacher. They did just in 1985 with René Arnoux, and there was for some disciplinary problems. It was because the Drake, Enzo Ferrari, was not connecting anymore with Arnoux, so that's because they decided. So never because of a technical reason. If they get until this point, that is not the point of replacing, but starting to consider the option that anyway is already a lot for Ferrari. If they got until this point, it is probably because they saw zero result from Massa in the season test and is this beginning of the season. It's not something that is going to happen tomorrow or after Malaysia or after the first race when they will be back in Europe. But I think that by June, if the result will still be so disappointing from Massa, seriously, Sergio Perez could be the replacement because he's coming from the Ferrari Driver Academy, and at Maranello they are keeping Perez in a huge consideration also for the future, also for a normal replacement at the end of the season.
Interesting. Now, Kev, what do you think in terms of the Ferrari itself? We can all agree that Alonso probably drove it ahead,
Far better than it should have been driven.
ahead of its own ability. And don't you think, Tank, that that's one of the problems, is that not everyone can be able, like Alonso is, to drive a car beyond its abilities? And the Ferrari can't expect everyone to do that.
Yeah, when you are beside someone like Alonso or Schumacher, that was probably the natural father of Alonso. Maybe father of Schumacher had a holiday in Spain, I don't know. And when it is something like that, it's just choking your ambition, seriously. But still, Massa has always been beloved by all the Ferrari board because he went so close to that championship. In England what I'm talking about. Because anyway he was unlucky, and because anyway he was giving all the effort, and Schumacher was beside him. When Schumacher was walking out, he was pointing at Massa and saying, guys, this could be the guy of the future. He's careful about the things. Of course, he's not natural champion like could be Schumacher, Senna, but anyway, it is someone on which you can bet some money. But in the last year, and so also in this beginning of the year, I would say, even if it could be merciless for me to say that, but I would say after the terrible accident that Massa had, he was never back at his level. And you know, if Alonso would win, or if Ferrari would be competitive for the title, probably they wouldn't care. They couldn't care that much, because they would say, okay, we need a second guy that can't throw a shadow over Alonso.
True.
But at this point, where at this moment the maximum ambition is the 5th place, and that will be for the next 1 month, 1 month and a half. Of course, also that is becoming a sensible topic.
Yep, true that. I'm thinking maybe one of the reasons why Hamilton was so grumpy on the podium is that he didn't get a chance to have a fight with Massa.
Yeah,
maybe that's what it is. He misses the beef.
Misses fight crashing into a red car. I want to crash into a red car, Mum.
Yeah. So
you know, here in Italy, whenever there is a fight between Massa and Hamilton, everyone, and me too, we are always for Massa, always.
That's strange. I come at that from a slightly different angle, Tancredi.
Yes, unbelievable.
To be honest, though, Hamilton is starting to lose a lot of
of
he's
a bit grumpy
here anyway because of his grumpiness.
By the way, I drop you also this, but this could be, I just divide the things. This is a real news. Of course, it is a speculation, but if Gazzetta dello Sport is bringing on the front cover, means that there is something for sure, because no one else in the world is informed about the Ferrari things like Gazzetta dello Sport. This is 100% sure. But I'm dropping you also this other thing, and you take it in the way that you want, that on the Spanish papers today, there were speculations about Hamilton not feeling comfortable with the attitude of the team towards Button. Basically, what a national newspaper, AS was quoting is that the setup that the team prepared for Button was much better than the Hamilton one, and that the night of the race, after the party that usually they have, he was already showing is complaining to the team, saying, I can't understand why my car was not going like his one.
Interesting.
Wow.
Well, that's what's great is that's kind of exclusive. We've got the Italian newspapers and the Spanish newspapers coverage right here for you on the grid. So before we say ciao, I just wanted to ask you, what's your prediction for Malaysia this weekend and overall for the season based on one race, Tancredi?
Overall from the season, wow, you don't love me, eh? you don't love me at all. I must say I still go, for overall of the season, I must say I still go with Vettel. Because if we think about this last race, Vettel shouldn't be at the 2nd place. The maximum should be at the 3rd place. And still, he was ready to clinch that. And, okay, also thanks to the safety car. But in the end, he just finished a couple of seconds behind Jenson Button. For Malaysia, I think that anyway, it's just 1 week after. I think that anyway, it will be still McLaren. And I'm expecting a kind of revenge, a kind of comeback from Hamilton. But this that the Spanish paper was bringing out is interesting. It's just a speculation, but if true, could bring more pressure on Hamilton. And we know how Hamilton sometimes is very impulsive when he's under pressure.
Look at the glee in that
Superb.
man's face.
I love the fact that brings such a smile to your face, Tancredi. Tancredi, grazie mille, and ciao, and maybe speak to you next week.
Yes, just a pleasure.
Thank you very much. So, Tancredi, we say ciao. So, fascinating insight.
You've got to love the Tank.
Yeah,
You've got to love him.
But it's great to know that the front page of the Gazzetta today is all about Ferrari. Can you imagine if that was the case in the UK?
No way that would happen.
So we're gonna take a break now, and when we come back, we'll be talking more about later in the show. We'll be talking about endurance cars in Sebring, and of course the IRC rally which happened in Gran Canaria at the weekend. But straight after the break, we'll be joined live from Malaysia by the Caterham team, talking more about Formula One. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to part 2 of The Grid on this, the 21st of March 2012. And bear in mind, it's part 2 of 4. It's a 4-part show, up to a full hour. By the end of the season, we'll be doing 4-hour shows. I don't guarantee it. Still to come, we'll be talking rallying and endurance cars from America. But right now, let's get back to the business. We've had the Australian Grand Prix, race 1 of the 2012 season. Now, there were some technical sort of speculations since the race. Tell us a bit more about that.
You call it speculation, I call it mudslinging, or it's not fair. Yeah. What happened after the race, or is in sort of Red Bull and Lotus have got a problem with Mercedes' F-duct.
Right.
They believe it to be illegal. They said, we're not going to do anything about it now. But I mean, Mercedes messed up. They made that schoolboy error of when they're on the grid crowding about 120 people around the back of the car, which always stinks of we're not quite sure. Yeah. So they're alert to that. But today, Mercedes have said that they believe that Red Bull are running an illegal exhaust system. So it's just going to be one of those sort of backwards and forwards. I mean, it'll probably get sorted out at some point.
Lots of tits, lots of tats.
Yeah, lots of tits and tats. Steady.
Well, someone who could probably shed some light on these issues is someone that you know well. It's Tom Webb, who is... Are you actually in Malaysia right now?
I am. Good evening, chaps.
Hello, Tom. What time is it there?
It looks like it's about 3 in the morning.
Yeah, right now it's actually 10 o'clock at night. I hope my face isn't giving away exactly how late it feels, but it is, 10 o'clock.
Now, first of all, thanks very much for joining us. It's great to have someone who's sort of within the world of Formula One talking on our show. And I know you know Kevin.
I know Tom, yeah. Tom let me go around the factory, and Tom is responsible for putting me in the seat of a Formula One car.
I think I've seen that video.
Yeah, he made me take my socks off.
We've managed to fix the seat that we put you in. So don't worry about it.
Are you considering him for a drive later in the season if things don't go right?
Yeah, definitely. I need somebody to get me down from Norwich down to London quite regularly. So, yeah, for that, for sure.
Well, he'd look good in the chauffeur's cap.
Yeah, he'd look good.
So, first of all, can you tell us, this shift where you go from Australia to Kuala Lumpur, how does it affect you and of course, the drivers? Is it quite a schlep?
Yeah, I mean, it's to be honest, it's something we're quite used to. The back-to-back races, particularly in the Far East, are quite tough because of the time difference. But for most of the team, we flew out to Australia last week. I flew out on the Sunday night, get to Australia on the Tuesday morning, and start work then. And kind of jet lag be damned, you just have to get on with it. For the guys who put up the garage and the guys who actually work on the car, they flew out 1 or 2 days before, and it's just one of the things you deal with. I mean, for the drivers, Heikki came out to Malaysia about a week and a half before the Australian race. And for those guys, it's about trying to get used to the heat. So they spend as much time as they can training and probably, to be honest, sitting around by the pool for as much as they can to get used to the humidity and the heat. But we left Australia on the Monday morning, and you come over to Malaysia, and the first thing, obviously, you try and get used to is the humidity, and you just have to get used to the time difference. So for most of the guys who do the really hard work, they have flown over here, they have a day off, and then they get straight back into work. And it's kind of 45 degrees in the garage, so it's pretty tough for those guys who have to end up wearing fireproof overalls on a Sunday afternoon. For the likes of me, who gets to swan around in team kit for the whole week, it's not quite so arduous, but it's still pretty tough.
I like the idea that sitting by the pool is training, because the reclining on a lounger is about the same position as a driving seat.
So really low loungers is what it is. They've got really small ones.
But on a serious issue, how does the sort of heat and humidity, not just, obviously we know the drivers have to be incredibly fit for the very physical business of driving a Formula One race, but how does it affect everything, like the car setup, the actual sort of the endurance of the race? Ooh.
Well, I mean, from a car perspective, it's actually not, it doesn't require a huge amount of difference. I mean, I think one of the things that we're going to see this weekend is the tyre degradation is going to play an even more important role than it normally does. The heat out here is something that none of the teams have yet encountered on the 2012 tyres. We tried a version of them in Abu Dhabi at the back end of last year, but I think degradation levels are going to play an absolutely critical role. We've got the medium and the hard tyre choices here for the race on Sunday, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see how quickly they go off.
Yeah.
Deg on those, both of them looks pretty high. So I think you could see multiple pit stops taking place on Sunday. The other thing with Malaysia is that it tends to rain right in the middle of the race, which obviously makes for a fantastic spectacle for the spectators. But for the guys in the garage, it means basically spending half of the race jumping up and down, getting ready for pit stops, sitting down, getting up again, and trying to work out whether or not you go on inters, you go on wets, whether you go onto options or primes. I mean, it's one of the more frantic races. I think for the drivers, it's about trying to stay hydrated. They can lose up to 3 or 4 kilos in body weight in loss of liquid. So they will drink an awful lot of electrolytes and the kind of sports drinks for maybe 3 or 4 days before they would normally. And it's just a very, very tough race. Honestly, the hardest thing, I think, I mean, the drivers trained for it, but the hardest thing is for the mechanics, because those guys are sitting there in the garage on a Sunday afternoon when everybody sees them on TV with the goggles down and the crash helmets on. But, they're working 16, 17-hour days for 4 or 5 days before that in that same humidity. And Malaysia doesn't have any air conditioning in the garage. I think Abu Dhabi is the only race on the entire calendar where there's aircon in the garage. So those are the guys that are really, really sweating. And it's a tough race, but you just get on with it.
Does it smell?
Yeah, not as bad as you do, mate. Knowing how nervous you were about coming up to our factory and having counted it up close and personal. No, we have an awful lot of fans blowing around the garage, so no, it doesn't.
No, that's all right then. I did notice in the Grand Prix that obviously Petrov stopped by the pit wall, Covey stopped by the pit wall. What have you got in the canteen that's so alluring that your drivers think, I can't really be bothered to go all the way around the circuit, I'll just jump over the wall? Because I went to the straight line test, you very kindly invited me there, and you had a burger van.
Yeah, that's straight line testing. That's a slightly different proposition to what we do when we're normally at. No, it's just good food. We have an incredibly good catering team. We have an Italian, a Kiwi, and a Malaysian chef, and those boys can cook it well, man. So it's just an unfortunate coincidence that both of those cars managed to bring themselves to a halt relatively near the garage, and I think it was just the drivers being nice to the mechanics and making sure that they didn't have to run for about a kilometre either way to go and recover them.
But seriously, how do you feel you are in this stage? At this stage, do you feel like you can contend? Because you were behind Massa. I know he was a pit stop behind, and I know it is Massa, but you were actually behind him when I think Covey went out. You were behind Massa.
Yeah, I mean, we're year 3 here for this team. There were 3 teams that started in 2010, and I think you look at the other 2 teams who are behind us, and you can see just how hard it is to try and get anything close to competitive in this sport. There are teams ahead of us who have hundreds of millions of dollars of budget and an awful lot of employees and many, many years of experience. And we're measuring ourselves against them. And I think one of the hardest things for us is to kind of manage expectations for the fans who want to see us in the midfield and want to see us regularly scoring points. So we came to Australia with a car that mechanically is light years ahead of the car that we started last year with, let alone 2010. Under the skin, it's as good as any car out there on the grid. We have all of the elements that we need to have to be quick. We have KERS this year for the first time, and we have an incredibly professional team that really since day one in Bahrain 2010 we've been looking like a Formula One team that's been there for a long time. I think the truth is that in qualifying on Saturday in Australia, we didn't do ourselves justice. Heikki was held up by one of the HRTs and cost him some time, but we know where we're going to be, and I think we look at simulations and we look at everything else before the race to have some idea of really what our true pace is. But I think Sunday gave some idea of actually what we can do, because at the end of 2011 we were able to compete just about with a few of the teams ahead, and okay, maybe that was taking into account some tyre strategies and maybe a bit of luck here and there, but the lap times that both Vitali and Heikki were running on Sunday were comparable with some of the midfield teams. So I think we would like to think that we've kind of almost just about bridged the gap, and I'm being really cautious about that because I think qualifying is the ultimate show of pace. You know, no fuel, you know, you have very low ballast, and you have the cars set up to be as quick as possible. But really, it all counts on a Sunday afternoon, and the DNF, the double DNF for us was really unfortunate and was something that we have fixed. We've made some a lot of work has gone in to make sure that those problems don't occur again. 3 people have flown out over the last 2 days with various new parts to be put on the car to fix those problems. And I think that we would like to hope that this weekend in Malaysia we can put on a much better show. Maybe in qualifying, if we can get to within 0.5, 0.6 of the guys ahead, that's pretty much a huge achievement. You know, we started last year over a second away from those guys. But I think in the race on Sunday, I think that we should be in a position to be able to fight. And if we can avoid the first corner dramas that were there, Australian race, and we can keep the guys on track right to the end of the race, then I think we should be in a good position.
Is there an added pressure this coming weekend simply because, in a way, it's like a home event? I mean, I know from my experience that there's doing the World Rally Championship, if Subaru or Mitsubishi didn't achieve well in a Japanese rally, then the Japanese weren't very happy, and it looked bad on them. Genuinely, how does it feel to sort of be forced to do this so early in the season for your team?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually, because we've been, I think expectation management is something that's key for my job in particular. I work in communications and marketing, and I think that one of the things that we have to try and do is make sure that people have reasonable expectations. And as much as we want to tell people that we are joining the midfield, and that's really the stated goal for the last couple of years, I think we also have to be realistic, and I think it's difficult really for people to understand exactly how big a challenge that is. You know, just over 2 and a bit years ago, there was literally nobody in the empty factory up in Hingham, and you know, we now have a staff of around about 250. We have wind tunnel capacity that is maybe on a par with some of the lower end of the midfield teams. So I think, you know, one of the key things for us, particularly when we come home to Malaysia, where we have an awful lot of financial investment and emotional investment from people here who want to see Tony Fernandez's team do well, and they've been with us since the very first day. I think that the fans are pretty much knowledgeable enough to understand that it is a huge task, and that if we've started in 2010, you know, maybe something like 7 seconds off in that first test that we did in 2010. We were 7 seconds off the pace. By the time we got to Bahrain, we were about 4 seconds. By the start of 2011, we were about maybe 2 seconds off. By the end of 2011, we were about 1.5. And I think they understand that if we've got that down to half a second, that's a huge achievement in itself. But we're hungry for that point, as the fans are. And whether it's here in Malaysia, whether it's in the UK, whether it's Hungary, Canada, anywhere that we go, I think that we want to be able to give people something to cheer for, and when we do, then it will be, you know, a reason for us to celebrate. But it will be even more cause for us to just get on with it and keep improving. So, whether it's Malaysia or anywhere, the pressure's there, and we just have to deal with it.
Cool. I mean, we're all behind you, definitely. Now, Heikki tends to tweet quite a lot, and he seems to have a cold, which he can't shake. As a team, how do you manage that? Because, you know, these guys are sort of trained to the peak of performance, but if you've got a head cold, that just has to run its course.
That's a good point. I think the fitness levels that the Formula One drivers have are just astonishing. The forces that they are under in the car are enough, from top speed down to a heavy braking zone. They're enough to move the internal organs around your body. You know, these guys are under huge G loads in every single corner that they're driving the cars around, and that's why they train as hard as they can. And I spent the day today with Heikki, and he's genuinely feeling pretty under the weather. I mean, the guy is he's not on the sort of form that he normally is, but physically he's probably pretty close to the maximum, to the peak that he should be. So he'll get in the car on Friday, and even if he's feeling 98%, that's still 1,000% more physically capable of doing the job than I'll ever be. And he'll just do the best job that he can. You know, if we have to prep him in certain ways to be able to get in the car and do the job on Sunday, then we'll do that. But I think he said to me today that if he gets out of the car on Sunday and he's absolutely drained, it's because he's prepared for it. He is not going to stop him racing, and it's certainly not going to stop him pushing as hard as he can. So I think it's something like a head cold. You just deal with it, and he's fit enough to be able to get on with the job. And I think that he'll be fine. He will dose himself up with the certain things that he's allowed to take under the WADA anti-doping laws, and make sure that he doesn't take anything that's going to cause him any issues. And he'll get in the car on Friday, do the same on Saturday, and by Sunday he'll probably be okay. If it was a really, really bad situation, if he was taken properly ill, then we have a reserve driver in Guido van der Gaard, who's a Dutch driver who will be competing for us in GP2 this season. And Guido is here, partly because GP2 is racing here in Malaysia, and also because he's our reserve driver. And if Heikki was really under the weather and couldn't take part at all, then we'd stick Guido in the car and we just get on with it. That's unfortunately it's the way that we have to do. We have to be unemotional about it and just make a plan and then put that plan into action.
Tom, thank you very much. What a fascinating insight into where we are right now between Australia and Malaysia. So if it's 10 o'clock there, you've still got time to go out and hit a few bars, I guess, before you go to bed.
Do you know, I wish I could. We're actually staying in a rather large hotel in a part of Malaysia called Putrajaya, and there's about 6 other teams staying in the same hotel as us. And tonight the hotel puts on an annual F1 cocktail evening, which I have to say has been one of the odder evenings that I've experienced. They have a comedian who is quite a large woman who's walking around, it seems, just trying to touch mechanics, which I've never seen.
Let John Daly on her.
One mechanics run that fast, and they are giving out free drinks. So while it's been great speaking to you guys, I do have to make sure I can go and get the last of the free drinks before the hard work starts properly tomorrow morning.
All right, mate. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thanks.
Go back and get your free cocktails and run away from that comedian. Thanks a lot. I'll maybe speak to you next week or again in the season. That would be great.
Be good for us too. Thanks, guys.
All right. Good luck this weekend.
Cheers.
So Tom Webb there, all the way over in Kuala Lumpur, about to go back to a Formula One cocktail party.
Weird, isn't it?
Don't you wish?
I think they should just get Heikki to go around and snog all of the other teams.
To give them the
Give them all the cold. That's what they should do.
My only experience of Kuala Lumpur was I did a stopover there once, and I saw the biggest snail I've ever seen. It was a snail that was this big. What
was it doing?
It was just moving from one bit of grass to another. That's it. That's my only experience of Kuala Lumpur. What an insight from me into Formula One.
Tom, filling us with it.
Tom, amazing. So far we've had Tancredi and Tom giving us proper insight into Formula One. When you come back after the break, we'll have Becca Williams talking about rally, and then Ben Constanduros talking about endurance cars. So we will see you after this break. Welcome back to The Grid on Sports Tonight Live. Now, we've parked Formula One briefly to one side, but we will come back later because if you're part of our Castrol Edge Predictor League, we'll be looking at the leaderboard later, where I didn't do so well, but Kevin did pretty well. But yes, let's move to another part of the world and another discipline of motorsport and talk rallying, where last weekend saw the second round of the IRC, the Intercontinental Rally Challenge, taking place, the Spanish round, which takes place on Gran Canaria, the Spanish island in the Canaries, off the coast of Africa in the Atlantic. And I was there, and we should have someone on Skype who can tell us a little bit more about it. Bex, are you there? No. So
you'll have to tell us about it instead.
The thing about the Gran Canaria is an extraordinary tarmac event. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to the Canaries. There's Lanzarote, Fuerteventura, Tenerife, and Gran Canaria, and they're very amazingly smooth tarmac roads. go up
What's
the
the
mountain.
natural terrain like?
It's huge volcanic mountains.
So why didn't they use that?
Yeah, well, no, they do, but they've just made
Just on
amazing,
tarmac.
amazing roads. We do have Bex. Bex, are you there? Can we hear you?
I am here, yeah. Canaries is a fantastic event, Neil. I mean, I've been there in the past. The tarmac is spectacular. The stages are amazing, and it always gives out a huge amount of drama, that event. But did we expect the drama that we saw on the final stage? It was a real build-up, wasn't it? All event, the battle between Mikkelsen and Kopecky. And it looked like Mikkelsen had it in the bag. You thought, hold on, he's going to seal his first IRC asphalt win here. And then on the final stage, huge dramas for him, misfire with the car, and Kopecky walks away with it. Fantastic result for Kopecky. He's a driver I really respect. He's such a great guy. He looks like a 1940s screen idol in my eye.
He does have the matinee idol look about him, doesn't he? Yeah.
He does. But, you know, a huge drama there. We always see that on the Canaries. But I think one thing that was really interesting for me was the tactic that Mikkelsen took on that opening night, where he dropped time so that he would be behind Kopecky going into the next day, which is something we normally see, or we've used to seeing on gravel events, not tarmac. And his quote was, "I wanted to hunt and not be the hunter," which is classic.
And also what was interesting about that is internally within Skoda UK Motorsport, I'm very aware that they don't believe in tactics. So they had to be very careful with what Andreas said, because it was a little super special where he dropped time deliberately to be behind. But yes, because it's not gravel, you're not opening the road, you're not clearing away that line of loose gravel to get more grip. Extraordinary that. But he was on a run. He'd smashed the record of having, no one had ever won 3 events in a row in the IRC. He was all set to bring home his first ever tarmac victory, but he will inevitably win on tarmac this year, which is a big step for a young rally driver who's grown up driving on gravel and snow, and for whom tarmac is an alien surface.
I think there's a real momentum around Mikkelsen right now. I mean, we've seen him come up through the years. He's still very young. We've seen him grow, we've seen him mature, but right now his star is shining. And that tarmac win is going to come very soon. Is it going to come on the next round at the Circuit of Ireland? I don't know. There's so many strong drivers we're going to see there. We'll see Craig Breen come back into the field in IRC there. Alistair Fisher, you know, they know the roads well. I think we may see Hannon in there. Not altogether sure on that. It's going to be tough at the Circuit of Ireland, but you're right. It's inevitably it's going to come at some point this year. But I am just loving the whole momentum around Mikkelsen right now. He could just go out there and do anything.
Now, what's interesting for me, because I'd not been to Gran Canaria before, is those roads, they're sort of, most of the stages do a massive hill climb up to the top of the mountain, then ride along the ridge of the mountain for a while, then do sort of a descent to the finish. That's a pretty standard format for those stages. And there's a lot for the drivers to cope with. And I was speaking to some of the drivers there, and some of them had done training on circuits, because a lot of it, there's no room to cut. So they're having to treat the road like an actual circuit race. But then they're having to manage the tyres and the brakes, because there's the uphill, there's the fast sections, and then the really steep descent, so the brakes can go off before the end. And it was a shame there wasn't a bigger field in Gran Canaria to see how, you know, lesser experienced drivers would cope with that.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to some of the drivers previously when I've been there, and they've compared it to the WRC round in Spain when you're talking about the circuits. Obviously, not so much the downhill sections, but certainly the fast-flowing nature of the stages. And a lot of people who've had experience there bringing it to Canaries are growing in strength. What's interesting is, I can't remember who it was, and one of the drivers compared it to, you know, the precision you have to have on those stages is something similar to what you will take to the Ypres rally later in the year. The Belgian round, where it's not so much circuit racing style there, but you have to be so precise because of the gullies at the edge of the stages. You go off into those and you're not coming back on. So the precision will carry on through the year. Ypres, you know, one of the classics on the calendar, certainly my favourite. Hopefully we'll have a really strong field going there. But you're right, it would have been good to see more drivers going to the Canaries. We were really concentrating, I certainly was when I was watching it, concentrating so much on the battle right at the top of the field. It would have been good to watch bigger battles all the way down, although there were some stronger names would have been good.
Yeah. Leaving the IRC for now, I noticed in the news today that Sebastian Loeb there's a movement within the WRC to reintroduce endurance to these events, to move away from the easily managed 2 or 3 day events which just take place in and around the service park, and to make them longer. Jean Todt and Michel Mouton are moving to give, and I think Argentina this year is going to be a massive long endurance rally. And I noticed in the news today that Sebastian Loeb has said, I don't really want to do it. If they do this, I will retire this year. I'm getting bored of the recce. I do not like this anymore. Do you think, who do you think is right? Do you think it will appeal to fans if it's more endurance? Or do you think Loeb is just throwing his toys out?
I don't think he's throwing his toys. I think what we've got to remember about Sebastian Loeb is he's been in this game quite a long time now. He's got enough championship wins under his belt. And at the end of the day, he likes an easy life. Endurance events are going to be tough on the drivers. Huge recce's, huge stages. I think there's a definite split. We've noticed this across the WRC now since the endurance has been brought in. There's a definite split of people saying, we don't need this, it's going to cost much more money for the manufacturers. The drivers aren't so concerned. From a fan perspective, I think they would love it. We all get so excited when we see the long stages, just looking back to Mexico a couple of weeks ago, and the 54-kilometre stage, that all got us very excited. So we're talking about longer stages, but also in duration of the event longer. Even split countries was mentioned last year. I think Sebastian, I mean, I've seen the quotes that he said, you know, it would hasten his leave, hasten his departure from the WRC if that was to happen. Could he be talked around? I don't know. He does like new challenges, the boy, but it's getting out of bed really early in the morning that could be the problem.
Okay, I mean, his exact quote today was, I have been doing this a long time, and I have to admit that I find the recce and things like this a little bit boring now. Well, retire. Let someone else win a championship. Bex, thank you very much. Where are you off to next, rally-wise?
Really excitingly, Portugal next week. But before that, the rally sprint, which is being held in FAF in Portugal.
That's right, that amazing stage with all the old spectators with the Group B days.
That's right. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected on the weekend. We're going to have Ford and Citroën basically competing against each other. 3 runs through one stage, and we'll have to see who wins at the end of it. Great preparation for the rally itself, but it should be awesome. I can't wait.
Superb. Report back to us, will you, Bex? And thanks again for being on our Skype call. That's Bex Williams there, reporting about all things rallying. Time for a break now, but please join us after the break, where we'll be talking about the weekend in Sebring just gone. So from me and Kevin, see you in a minute. Welcome back to this, the final part of the extended version of The Grid, with its nice new titles as well. Please let us know via the Facebook page and via Twitter at STL_The Grid what you think of the new format. Of course, that's still the old image. It's only episode 5. Nothing's that old. Coming up shortly, we'll be talking about the World Endurance Championship, which took place in Sebring at the weekend with Ben Constanduros. But first, the way that you can get involved with this show, as well as Skyping in, tweeting, and Facebooking, is through our Predictor League. Now, of course, we have made predictions. If you haven't, and if you want to fight, we can give you a link to join our league. I'm overall in the worldwide Predictor League. I am 4,657th, but 7th in our league. Now, my prediction for this weekend: I've got Vettel winning, Button second, and Raikkonen in third.
Wow, you've thrown a real curveball in there. Are you suspecting that Lewis is going to have a little paddy somewhere and crash his car? Is that what you're saying?
Lewis is going to. Yeah, I've got Lewis and Webber. I think Lewis and Webber will connect. They will be DNFs, so they don't feature in my top 10 at all. I mean, last week Grosjean did me no favours, right? I had him as quick, but he was too quick in qualifying. Yeah. I had him as most positions gained, and
when in fact it turned out to be most positions lost.
So that's my prediction for this weekend. I've got Kobayashi in 5th, Grosjean in 4th, so what about you? What have you gone for?
Well, I can't remember. I need the graphic to help me. Oh, there we go. Look, same situation. Same situation at the front. I think.
So the same podium as Australia.
Same podium as Australia. That's what I'm going with. Webber there. I've taken Schumacher out of the equation. And adjusted Kobayashi and Kimi accordingly. That's the way it is. Kobayashi's obviously going to overtake a lot of people at the start in a sort of PlayStation start where he just drive straight through. Yep. We've got that. and Jenson to get a pole. Because I think Jenson, when he's confident, drives very well, and he will be confident off the back of that. It's only a week ago, so I think he's going to be all right. And I'm 1,139th.
You're so much higher up the league than me, and fourth in our own league. In fact, our producer Natasha is higher than you.
Yeah, she got the button. She got the button for the
So let's look at this leaderboard for the Sports Tonight Live grid. People involved now. James Lynch currently leads with 137, and that is actually a very in the global predictor league. That's a very good score. I think the most is 140, so he's doing very well. Ashley Brown in second, and look, there's Natasha
highlighting number 3. Who's in charge of that mouse?
And there's me down in 7th. And what I like as well is Martin Haven, frequent contributor to this show, is in 12th. Didn't do very well at all. So please do get involved. If you want a link to join our league, it's not too late. You can see there's 3 non-scorers on there already, so you could still have a chance with a couple of good races to be right at the top of our leaderboard. Now, so that's Formula 1 again, parked to one side, and we'll talk about the first event of the World Endurance Championship with Ben. Hello, Ben.
How's it going?
Good. Where exactly are you?
Well, I sort of stayed out here for a little bit, so I'm in Miami.
Nice. What? Okay, living the Will Smith dream. So how was the first event? Give us the headlines.
Well, the first thing is, I'd never been to Sebring before, and it is an incredible event. If anyone's ever been to Daytona for the 500 NASCAR race, you sort of take that and you then add a little bit of Le Mans thrown in, but it's still quite a small circuit. So everyone who's watching the event in their big RVs are right beside the circuit. They build their own grandstands. The fans are so enthusiastic. They're very, very knowledgeable as well. And it creates a fantastic atmosphere. The only place really where the FIA World Endurance Championship could start. It's beginning from, I think we had one in the early 80s called the Sports Car Championship, but this is the first time we've had the World Endurance Championship. And Mr. Jean Todt thought it was so important that he came to Sebring rather than going to watch the Formula 1 in Australia, which is the traditional thing for the president of the FIA to do. So all the big dignitaries were there.
And in terms of the race itself, it's a 12-hour race. Just slightly confusing in terms of the different categories and what this race is, because it's a returning series, it's a returning championship. So just explain what the different categories are and who's competing.
Well, for the race at Sebring, we had the first round of the World Endurance Championship also taking part alongside the first round of the ALMS, the American Le Mans Series. So you had American Le Mans Series cars and World Endurance cars, neither scoring points for each other's championship. And then you had LMP1, LMP2, the Le Mans prototype cars, and the GT Pro and GT Am cars. That's for the World Endurance Championship. ALMS also have GTC. So GT Pro is for pro teams, pro drivers, the likes of BMW, Porsche, Ferrari, works teams. GT Am is for your gentleman drivers, your amateur drivers, the slightly portly ones. And the same thing for LMP1 and LMP2. LMP1 for professional teams like Audi, LMP2 for privateers like Jacques Nicolet and his Oak Racing team, who they just have the most amount of money you've ever seen in your life, and they love their motorsport, and they come along and actually do a very good job.
So the big story, of course, is Capello, Christensen, and McNish winning in the Audi. Now, a big sort of big deal, really, for McNish more than anyone else.
Yeah, well, Tom Christensen's become the all-time most successful driver ever at Sebring.
Wow.
And Dindo Capello said, "I thought I was going to catch him up, and then I realised that he was my teammate." So Dindo Capello's on 5, McNish is on 4 wins. But they've all gone ahead of anyone else who's ever taken part at Sebring. So much is the performance of that diesel. They were untouched. It was for Audis to lose. And actually, the great thing about Alan McNish is that he didn't crash into a Ferrari this time.
Yeah. But it was a tough year for him last year after his massive smash at Le Mans. So good for them to start the year well and the car going well. Will they be unchallenged throughout the year? I mean, what's it going to be like?
I don't know. We've got Toyota coming in. They're totally unknown in terms of the championship, but they are a tour de force when it comes to creating motorsport racing cars, whether it be rally, Formula 1 or endurance previously. So I don't think we should discount them. we're hearing from Sebring that the Audi guys have stayed out there to do some testing. And we're hearing actually that one of the new Audi e-trons, the hybrid cars, had an accident at turn 17. There's no barriers there. So Timo Bernhard was in hospital last night under observation, completely destroyed the car. So they've got a bit more work to do before they are reliable. And I think that's the main thing about endurance racing. This is not about all-out sprints. It has been previously, but with all this new technology, it's who's going to survive and who's going to get to the finish without crashing into traffic and without breaking their cars.
Exciting. Ben, thank you very much for joining us. I'll leave you to enjoy the Miami lifestyle.
I've got to go. Going to get a tan before I come home.
Certainly. Thanks a lot, Ben. Take it easy. We'll speak to you soon, hopefully. So that's it. I think we've pretty much covered all things motorsport.
We've done it.
Incredible. And we're very excited again to watch Malaysia. Will you be watching Sky or BBC One highlights?
Illegal download.
BBC One highlights then. So that's it. This weekend we've got the Malaysian Grand Prix, we've got IndyCar, we've got NASCAR, there's racing at Alton Park, Silverstone, Castlecombe, Brands Hatch, Rallycross at Liddon Hill, and there's the British Rally Championship in Welshpool for the Bulldog Rally. So there's plenty to keep in touch with over the weekend. If you want to get involved, get in touch with us via the Facebook page or via Twitter. But ultimately, thank you very much for watching. We have been The Grid. That's Kevin Shepherd. I'm Neil Cole. Goodbye.
Goodbye.